So for the scatter chart, let me first minimize this part. For the scatter chart, as you can see, this is, for example, a figure which I have it here, which is having a good colors and so on. So this figure actually what was showing, it was showing that from the drive test, you have the drive test serving and the neighbors, the levels during the handovers, and you have also the CQI value of the source. So for example, I would like to see what's at what point my CQI will start to degrade. So this is like one of the things can be done from the scatter, but for sure there's another methods. So for example, in this particular case, I can see that my CQI, which is above here, it start like showing as orange and red, starting from example from I think 100 around 110 start to showing very bad values. For sure, you have some exceptions here. This can be doing something else, but as an absolute level for the serving, for example, starting from 100, it start going down. So in this case, I can judge or I can give that under 110, my CQI is start deteriorating or start degrading. So I need to create something similar to this one. So as a visualization point of view, again, what you need to do, you need to go to the build visual again here. So where is the scatter chart? The scatter chart is here, you can see. So if you click the scatter chart, it will be appearing here in this page. So now let's see what we have in this scatter chart. I will just remove this filter here. So in the scatter chart, you can see you have something called value, you have x-axis, you have y-axis, you have legend, you have the sides of the bubbles, you can even increase the sides, and you have the play axis, and you have something called tilters. So actually there is two methods to create the scatter chart. I will first highlighting the traditional one, and in the PowerPoint, I will be explaining the difference between both of them in case if you would like to try it. So for example, in this case, I will be using the traditional. So my x-axis is coverage, or my x-axis is a coverage, but one for the serving and one for the neighbors from the drive test. So for example, I will just search for serving RSRB, which I know the data. So this is my serving. So I will drag and drop it in the x-axis. Okay. So now if I take, there is one point I will highlight, but now I'll just search for the neighbors. Also, I'll drag and drop my y-axis. Now it will be showing as a single point. Why? Because here, actually what I have done, if you look at this one, it's just showing sum. So it's just sum all the values. So I don't want to summarize. I don't want any aggregation. So I remove this part for both of them. So now what after remove the aggregation, it will give the x-axis will having all the values wherever you have your data set. I will do the same for the y-axis. Once you did no aggregation or no don't summarize, it will be showing in this figure that, for example, at this particular point, for example, if you click here, the serving was neg 73 as a coverage, while the neighbor was neg 80 at this particular area. Also, if you click here, neg 90, neg 88. And before, as mentioned, if you want to add any other data, for example, I would like to add the serving RSRQ or CQI. Okay, let's add, for example, tooltips. I'll show you. And if you change the aggregation here, I'll explain more now. Let's add more inputs here as well. I will add the CQI. Okay, so I would like to add, for example, the CQI here as well. So I will make here as average. So what is the main point of this part? The main point of this part, if you click here, it will be showing the information. If it's available at this particular point, showing. So for example, here it's showing -9. In some cases, it will show all the information, as you can see here, RSRB for the neighbor, RSRQ, and average CQI. This is the main function of the CQI. So for example, if you have the site information, you can click drop it here as well. It will tell you this point it was at which, for example, latitude, longitude, or whatever. Any information dropping here, it should appear here as long as this point is covering this information. The play axis actually, for example, if you want to share some online simulation, you have a date. If you drop the date here, I'll try to show you a different example. It will start showing date by date, and it will just run automatically. The sample size, for example, if you drop this CQI, for example, in the sample size here, and I give an average, so you will find that this bubble size is increasing actually. It's increasing based on the value of the CQI. So again, if you would like to format this one on a good visual, you just need to go to again format your visual, and you have this markers thing. You have under the markers, you have the type, and this is the size of the of this bubble. So if you reduce it, for example, here, if you keep reducing, so it will at the end give you a good image, which is like this. This is in case you would like to have a bubble size. So let's turn this one to normal value. It will be very big, but I will remove it from here. This depends on how you would like to visualize your data. So now I would like to control the coloring to have something similar to what I have on the left. How to do this part? Okay, now before doing this part, I'd like to show you from the PPT, which I'm going to show you what we have it actually here. For example, this is how we usually control our colors. Going back here, this is how you control the colors. I need to go for one area showing this, like to get conditional formatting of the colors. So you have three types to control our colors, something called the gradient, or by rule, or by field value. This is a gradient. It can be based on a value you are giving, minimum, maximum, and center value, or it can be like you can keep it to the system to calculate it based on your existing value. So you need just to change this format style to gradient. You'll find like this one. And for example, if you would like to give it as, this is the differences if you want to give a values. Second rule, for example, based on rule, for example, you go on to give, if the value is greater than this particular number, then make the color red and so on. The third one is based on formula. This will be maybe discussed in the this can be discussed in the session of the DAX part, but this is also, you can, through formula, you can give a color. So now let's quickly go to the Power BI. So now, after going to the Power BI, you can see here now I need to change this part to make it similar to what we have here in the left. So I will click in the format your visual. So once you click format the visual, you can find this x-axis, y-axis. This you want to modify something in x, y-axis, and for example the grid lines also, and zoom sliders. I will keep this zoom slider now. This is the markers inside here. So I will just click in the markers. Under this markers, you will find that you have a color. Okay, you will just go to the color. See in the color, you can even check every and each single point, which is actually not for sure recommended. This, once I open it here, it will open many things down here. Might take time. So no need for this part. Okay, see now it's opening all the values here. So this is actually not the case which we needed. So now we need to make it conditional formatting. So under the color, you'll find default, you will find this conditional formatting. You need to click it. So now this will open the page which I was just highlighting. So under the format style, you have three different ways, which is based on gradient, or rules, or field value. So now rules, you will just give a rule, and for example, if this one greater than this, I need this color. So I will just make it based on the gradient, which usually we use it the most. So now which KPI you would like to add here to see it as a color, as a heat map, for example. For example, I'm using the CQI in this particular area. So you will like to click here on this field thing and just write CQI, and you'll find this drive test input CQI. This is the aggregation or summarization. I would like to be as an average, because if you have 2 points at the same particular location, at particular level, so I need to take the average of both of them. So for example, here you see that it's taking the lowest value as this color. So I need to change it, for example, the lowest to be as red here. So I will just take the lowest value as red color. Now I need to add a middle value. For example, I need to add as yellow. So I can just add here and go to yellow color, and just again add as yellow color. The last part here is the highest, should be green, because CQI will be the highest. I will consider as the best value. So again, I will just click it here. So once you selected this value, it will give this automatic. It will be almost the same as whatever we have in this value. And you can see now we have it, but you can see it's not exactly the same, because here there is some zooming thing to make it more easy. Actually, there is a way to right click and remove these values manually, because sometimes you will have some abnormal values, and right click and exclude, but this should be done by one. We don't have the option for multiple selection in Power BI. It's there in Tableau, but we don't have the one. So there is another function. For example, in the data format, again, this is, keep it in your mind all the time, because you will need to go here many times. So for example, you have something called zoom slider. If you search in zoom, you'll find this zoom slider. So click this zoom slider. Once you open it, you will find now it's showing this kind of zoom in the X and Y axis. So for example, I want to filter out this. I want my filter to be starting from this particular value. So I will move it like this to -90 as an example. Okay. And same here for this one, I want to shift it to -90 as well. So I will take it down. So once you take it down here, it will be like kind of similar to the figure on the left. You can just extend it, make it like this, to be able to see more for whatever you have. So now I want to make it till 180, 190, and also this 900. So it will be very similar for what we have here in the other figure. And this is how actually we have done it. And this is the exact similar example. And as I told you, there is another method to without, for example, to add here values without, if you consider to make this one as an average value and this one as an average, you can use another one to add a data field. I will explain this one in better detail, but this is the traditional one we mostly use. So now if you click here, for example, you know that this value having coverage is neg 115, neighbor is neg 100, and average R star Q is neg 100.